He was found lying in the gutter in someone else's clothes, delirious, rambling, calling out the name Reynolds. 4 days later, Edgar Allan Poe was dead. No one knows why. What happened to Edgar Allan Poe in the final days of his life? The official reports make no sense. The eyewitness accounts contradict each other. Today, you will hear one of history's strangest mysteries. The timeline changes direction every few minutes, which keeps you one step ahead of everyone else who thinks they already know the truth about Poe. And this is the truth. This is not just a story about a writer. Edgar Allan Poe shaped modern horror, detective fiction, and psychological thrillers. The Raven, The Telltale Heart, The Fall of the House of Usher. Yet his final days look like something he would have written. You will hear the full timeline, the strongest theories, and the strange mistakes that have kept historians guessing since 1849. By the end, you will have your own theory. On September 27th, Edgar Allan Poe left Richmond, Virginia. He planned to travel to New York to edit a new magazine. He boarded a steamer, then vanished. There is no reliable record of what happened for the next 6 days. He does not reach New York, and the world loses sight of him. 6 days later, on October 3rd, Poe is found outside Ryan's Tavern in Baltimore. He is confused and dressed in dirty, oversized clothes. They do not belong to him, and he can't explain where he has been. Think about that. A man considered one of America's most brilliant writers cannot answer basic questions. Witnesses said he seemed in great distress. His hair was unkempt, and repeating the name Reynolds. No one knew who that was. You will hear that name again. Poe is taken to Washington College Hospital. He is placed in a small room with barred windows. His attending physician was Dr. John Moran, who later wrote that Poe drifted in and out of hallucinations. He was never clear and never explained what happened. Cause of death? Congestion of the brain. That's what the newspaper said. This phrase was used at the time when the real cause was unknown, or embarrassing, like alcohol poisoning. Modern researchers examined every detail of that report. It tells us nothing. Ask yourself this: why would the greatest storyteller of his time leave no final message, no explanation, no written word? That alone feels suspicious. Theory 1. Alcohol. This is the most common explanation. Poe had a history of alcohol sensitivity. One small drink could leave him sick for days. But the problem is that people who saw him that day said they did not smell alcohol on him. There was no record of vomiting. He recovered slightly, then declined again. That pattern does not match a simple alcohol death. Also, his friends said he had been sober for months. He was planning to marry and was taking work seriously. Unlike the popular image of Poe, he tried to build a stable life near the end. This theory is popular, although it may be wrong. This one is dark. Cooping was a real voter fraud tactic in the 19th century. Criminals kidnapped strangers, forced them to drink, change their clothes, and drag them to different polling stations to vote again and again. Where was Poe found? Outside a tavern that served as a polling location. When? Election season, and wearing clothes that did not fit him. Several people were found every year suffering from cooping. Many died, and their deaths looked exactly like Poe's. No paper ever reported Poe as a victim. If someone wanted to avoid trouble, they would leave his name out the papers because he was famous. This theory matches the scene, yet many questions remain. In 1996, a medical researcher analyzed Poe's symptoms: fever, delirium, fluctuating clarity, death in 4 days. That matches untreated rabies. But Poe was never reported to have had bite marks, and no one saw him with an infected animal. The researcher admitted that missing data rules out solid proof. Still, rabies creates a scary image. The master of horror stuck in his thoughts, fading away in a hospital room. This one is less scientific, but grabs your attention. Poe had enemies, debts, and had legal fights over stolen stories. He also had a romantic rival. He had gotten engaged, and the family of his fiancée did not approve of him. One rumor claims he was attacked, robbed, and left for dead. Another says he was targeted for revenge, and the clothes not being his hints that could be true. But there is no record of bruising on his body and no autopsy notes, because no autopsy was done. You are starting to see the problem. While one idea explains some parts, neither covers everything. Poe was buried the day after his death in a cheap coffin. No markings, no embalming. Years later, his body was moved. Workers reported the skull rolled inside the coffin. Some claim they saw a large mass inside the skull. They believed it was Poe's brain preserved by natural salts. Brains do not survive like that. Although the tale seems fake, papers ran it like truth. Then in 1875, Poe was moved again to a grander memorial. The coffin was falling apart. No medical examination was done, and a historical society wrote that his bones were sturdy. That is all we have. No remains were tested. The opportunity is gone. Multiple witnesses claimed Poe kept calling for Reynolds when he was found. There were two men with that name near the election site that day. One was a polling judge, and the other was a local newspaper editor. Some scholars think Poe meant Jeremiah Reynolds, a famous Arctic explorer. Poe admired him and used Reynolds' expeditions as inspiration for stories. If Poe was hallucinating, he might have believed he was inside one of his adventures. This clue is frustrating. It tells us nothing, yet it feels important. Poe's last reported words were, "Lord help my poor soul." They've got a lyrical ring, and people still quote it today. But Dr. Moran, the attending physician, changed his story many times. His notes do not match his later accounts, and he may have invented the line. This means that we do not know Poe's actual last words. The most important witness changed details for years. He once claimed Poe was calm, then later said he was violent. He also said Poe never mentioned alcohol, then later blamed alcohol for the death. He even wrote a book about it and contradicted himself in that book. Historians do not treat Dr. Moran as reliable. You can see why people still wonder. We have missing days, unreliable accounts, no autopsy, rumors that filled newspapers and letters. Poe lived off dark fiction, and his death became part of it. This is what makes Poe's death so fascinating. It is an unsolved and possibly unsolvable mystery. What we know for certain. Poe left Richmond on September 27, 1849. He was found in Baltimore on October 3rd. He died on October 7th. He never fully regained clarity. He wore clothing that was not his. His cause of death has never been identified in modern terms. Everything else? Just theory. Picture this. You are walking down a street in Baltimore. It's raining and see a man collapse in the gutter. You rush to help and realize his face looks familiar. He mumbles a name. He can't explain where he has been, and his clothes don't fit. 2 centuries later, you still don't know why. Edgar Allan Poe once wrote that the boundaries which divide life from death are at best shadowy and vague. The mystery of his own death proved that. Over 170 years later, Edgar Allan Poe's death remains one of literature's greatest unsolved mysteries. If you liked this real-life mystery behind a famous unsolved case, subscribe and comment below. What do you think killed Edgar Allan Poe? Alcohol? Rabies? Cooping? Murder? Comment below. Your idea could beat what specialists say. Hit follow if you love old mysteries. Tap like when it grabs your interest.
Stay curious, stay skeptical, and keep exploring mysteries from history that are stranger than fiction.